Welcome to the third video in the series aimed at improving understanding scenario analysis. In today's video, we're going to talk about selecting and refining the scenario. If you're following along in the series, the second video indicated that by this stage, we should already have a clear objective of what we want to test and achieve. We should also have a good understanding of how we want to deliver the scenario analysis exercise. Your exercise could be quantitative, qualitative, or both. When selecting the appropriate scenario, we also need to include what any relevant regulations are asking for. For example, the climate disclosures regulations in Australia ask that companies consider the impacts of a low warming scenario and a high warming scenario. Other scenario analysis and stress testing regulations specify that different types of risk need to be considered, but the regulations allow for you to choose the most appropriate scenario to generate insight. If your scenario analysis isn't being undertaken to meet a regulatory expectation, then you have a lot more freedom when it comes to design. So, once you have considered what the regulations tell us about what you should include, the following questions should be asked. Will this scenario help us meet the objective we have set out? If the answer is no, then you should continue to search for a scenario that better meets your objectives. If you're unsure, then it's okay to dig a little bit deeper into the scenario narrative or some of the other information that makes up the scenario. There may not always be enough information available, but not having enough information provides the ability to fill in what's missing in a way that can help you design the scenario to better fit your objectives. The next question to ask is, what information is included in the scenario that you need to focus on to make sure you meet the objective? If you're undertaking an economic scenario analysis, you might want to test specific economic indicators at certain levels. Alternatively, if you're identifying risks and opportunities in the supply chain for climate scenario analysis, you will need the information about the companies in your supply chain. The third question to ask is, what are the things I intentionally want to exclude from the scenario analysis? Defining what is not to be included is just as important as what is included. For example, if you're trying to focus attention on cyber threats from a geopolitical event, you need to explicitly include in the narrative that war does not eventuate. Similarly, if you're only interested in a supply chain scenario analysis, you will need to frame the scenario so that operational and customer elements are descoped. With regulatory disclosures now a main output of scenario analysis, it's important to ensure you have credible information sources throughout the scenario analysis process, including the scenario design. If you have been given a scenario, rather than having the ability to design your own, that's okay. You can still develop an objective by looking through the scenario elements and working out what are the most important questions you want to ask. If there are a lot of questions, then pick one or two to keep a more deliberate focus on generating the outcomes. You can always ask the other questions in a later exercise. Once you've selected your scenario and tried to narrow the focus of the scenario elements to better meet your objective, you're able to start working your way through the rest of the scenario analysis process. In the next few videos, we will cover the different steps relating to a qualitative exercise, a quantitative exercise, and how you might approach delivering an exercise with combined approaches. That's all for today. We hope you're finding the series helpful. If you're still not sure about how to get the best out of your immediate scenario analysis exercise, feel free to get in touch for a more detailed discussion.